The New Jersey Turnpike and the Garden State Parkway are two of the busiest and most important roadways in the state. The New Jersey Turnpike connects the Northeast as the central Route 95 link between New York and Delaware. The Garden State Parkway starts in New York State and ends in Cape May, 172 miles later. These roadways service the manufacturing and shipping industries of the New Jersey, New York metropolitan area and are a critical component to our nation's economy. It takes a colossal effort to keep one of the busiest roads in the country operational without putting anyone in harm's way. This is why the New Jersey Turnpike Authority has created an aggressive safety program aimed at keeping you and the traveling public safe. You will be required to understand and adhere to all of the requirements to perform your tasks in as safe a manner as possible. The New Jersey Turnpike Authority is comprised of several different organizations that all work together. The Engineering Department supervises and controls design, construction, and rehabilitation, as well as ensures the engineering standards are upheld throughout construction. The Maintenance Department is responsible for maintaining the assets of the authority, including the bridges and roadways, and they perform and manage all repairs and improvements. The Operations Department is responsible for traffic engineering and regulations, emergency services, and coordination of roadway activities, as well as operation of the Traffic Management Center. They ensure that everything is operated with the safety of all motorists and workers first and foremost. The Operations Department is also responsible for the approval of all closings on authority roadways. The Tolls Department collects all of the tolls on the Turnpike and Parkway. Work zones in the vicinity of the toll plazas need to be coordinated with this department. Finally, the State Police, specifically Troop D, works with the authority to provide assistance with lane closings, vehicle escorts, and slowdowns. The Construction Unit Patrol specializes in temporary traffic control. Their primary duty while on site is to help you work safely. Permits and approvals. Before any work can be done, you must ensure the correct paperwork is in place. This means proper permits and insurance for you and your company. Remember, traffic permits require 10 business days for review and approval from the authority, so if you do not have them, you are not working today. Failure to update the traffic permit as required will result in the suspension of the permit and denial of closure requests until the information is received. All applicants for traffic permits will be required to view a training video regarding safe operations on authority roadways and must read and understand the manual for traffic control in work zones. A TCC, or Traffic Control Coordinator, certified by Rutgers Kate LTAP, may be required depending on the scope of the project. This person is to have no other duties for the project and is to remain on site at all times. The TCC is responsible for making sure all MPT is in place and working properly. Personnel and personal safety. Once on site, you must be sure to have proper personal protection equipment, or PPE. The New Jersey Turnpike Authority has high visibility safety apparel requirements that are above the minimum federal requirements. All workers that are exposed to traffic must wear a Class 3 ANSI reflective vest with sleeves. Tearaway sleeves are acceptable, and you should wear a hard hat and have proper foot protection when in a work zone. In addition, all vehicles should have overhead 360-degree visibility amber lights. Compliance with these OSHA regulations will reduce your exposure to hazards while on the job site. Closure requests. The policy of the authority is to limit lane and shoulder closures to the minimum required to perform the necessary work in a safe and timely manner. Lane closures are only to be permitted when it enables work that would not be feasible or efficient otherwise. Only the Operations Department may approve the scheduling of a lane, shoulder, ramp, or roadway closure. Available times and dates for closure requests can be found in the lane closing and shoulder closing tables in the Manual for Traffic Control in Work Zones. These tables provide the minimum number of lanes that must be maintained for segments of the roadways on an hourly basis. Additionally, there may be some restrictions that apply to your specific closure, such as heavy travel days, special events, and weather issues. Check with the Operations Department about such restrictions, as they must approve any exceptions you may have. Terminology. While working on the roadways and communicating with the state police and other groups, knowledge of the proper terminology and roadway designations are important. All designations on the turnpike are noted as from to. For example, a roadway going from north to south would be abbreviated NS. Familiarize yourself with these abbreviations so that everybody can more easily communicate. Closures. There are several different types of closures that you could work on, each with their own specifications and restrictions. Lane closures refer to mainline roadways and are the most heavily traveled section that would need to be closed. Short-term lane closures should only occur on the left or right side of the highway. The installation or removal of any type of lane closure on the turnpike needs to be performed with the assistance of the state police using a traffic slowdown. Lane closures on the parkway do not require the use of a slowdown. To begin a lane closure, proper signage must first be put up to alert traffic of the approaching work zone. Both sides of the roadway must be signed before work can begin. Speed reductions are to be posted in advance of and through a work zone and are to be set at 45 miles per hour unless otherwise noted. Then, with the use of a turnpike-approved cone truck backed up by an attenuator, the cone taper can be set up. The taper on the turnpike is 1,200 feet long, measured from the first cone of the taper, and 760 feet on the parkway. The cones must be placed down 50 feet apart on the turnpike and 20 feet apart on the parkway within the taper. An arrow board must then be placed in its proper location 900 feet from the first cone located within the taper on the turnpike and 760 feet from the first cone at the end of the taper on the parkway. When multiple lanes are closed in a work zone, they need to always be adjacent on the same side of the highway and will require a minimum of a 1,000-foot tangent section, depending on sight lines and approved taper points, followed by 1,200 feet of taper on the turnpike and 760 feet of taper on the parkway. Spacing of cones on the non-tapered section is 75 feet on the turnpike and 80 feet on the parkway. After work is completed, all cones must then be picked up. On the turnpike, a slowdown must be initiated by the state police before the pickup of the taper can begin. The cone truck shall travel in reverse, always on the inside of the taper, picking up the cones. Never leave a lane closed during inclement weather. Work areas within the clear zone, typically 30 feet, of an authority roadway require a shoulder closure unless protected by guide rail or temporary construction barrier. The installation or removal of any type of shoulder closure may be performed without a traffic slowdown and without the assistance of the state police. Remember, with or without the support provided by the state police, it is still your responsibility to close or reopen lanes and shoulders in a safe manner for workers and the traveling public. Closures at toll plazas will require state police assistance unless otherwise advised by the Operations Department. Before work begins, the lane use signal above the lane must be changed to indicate that the lane is closed. Closure of toll plaza lanes may extend before or after the toll plaza or may be confined to the limits of the toll plaza, depending on the type of work being performed. Interior toll plaza lanes may be closed while maintaining traffic through the toll plaza on either side. Unless otherwise shown in the plans, the standards for toll plaza closures are the same as for other lane closures. closures on ramps that do not extend onto the main line will follow their own set of guidelines. For short-term ramp closures, the Operations Department will issue the permissible closure hours. Full ramp closures will typically require detours. You will be responsible for coordinating with the authority and any other affected agency in developing any required detour plan or traffic mitigation requirement. Short-duration shoulder closures may be used instead of standard shoulder closures only when and where authorized by the Director of Operations. Roadway closures are provided on a limited basis for contract work and noted in the contract plans and specifications, and are otherwise rarely permitted. The Operations Department will advise you when work may be performed within a full roadway closure. Once a roadway is closed, the gate is to remain locked, and the roadway can only be reopened by the State Police or the Operations Department. When working within a closed roadway, work vehicles may travel in both directions as long as you stay to the far right in the direction you are heading. Headlights and 360-degree visibility lights must be on at all times. The maximum speed limit on a closed roadway is 35 miles per hour, and all access to the site must be from an interchange unless approved by the Operations Department or State Police. Z-turns cannot be used to access a closed road. Sometimes lane shifts will be required to keep traffic moving safely away from a work zone. Note that a lane shift is not a lane closure. Some lane shifts may require the removal of existing striping, and temporary pavement markings will be needed to indicate that traffic must temporarily follow a different path from the usual lanes. Tapers are 100-to-1 on the approach and 70-to-1 on the return, unless otherwise noted. Temporary traffic control devices. In order to safely close any lanes or shoulders, temporary traffic control devices will need to be installed and maintained. Temporary work zone signs will need to be placed as depicted in the plans or standard drawings to maintain the safe and efficient flow of traffic through the work zone. All temporary signs need to be on folding, barrier-mounted, or guide rail-mounted stands and must meet the standards described in the authority documents. Portable variable message signs are used to alert traffic of upcoming work zones and closures. These signs shall be compatible with the software used by the statewide Traffic Management Center so that they can be monitored and controlled. Access procedures to these boards shall be provided to the Operations Department 2 weeks prior to their activation. Vehicle-mounted arrow boards used with truck-mounted attenuators need to be activated to point in the appropriate direction that traffic must shift to pass the vehicle on the parkway. On the turnpike, the arrow board attached to the vehicle will be in caution mode straight bar. Work zone arrow boards that are not vehicle-mounted must be located either behind barrier or guide rail or within an approved lane or shoulder closure. Trailer-mounted arrow boards must not be hitched to a vehicle while in position for the duration of the closure. Traffic cones are used to channel the traffic away from the work zone and are typically placed on the closed side of the dashed or solid traffic line. These cones must always be reflective orange and outline the safe work zone, and no encroachment whatsoever will be permitted into the adjacent open travel lane. There are 28-inch cones and 36-inch cones that may be used. If using the 28-inch cones on the turnpike, a 5-pound collar must be placed on each one to ensure that the wind doesn't lift them up. All cones must be uniform on a work site. Never mix and match different sizes of cones. A truck-mounted attenuator, or TMA, is a system that is installed on the back of the traffic control truck and is the rearmost vehicle in a mobile lane closure or other truck in advance of a lane or shoulder closure and provides safety for the workers on site. This TMA is 22,000 pounds and should be set up before the beginning of a work zone as specified by the authority documents. No work can be done on either roadway without a proper TMA in place. Working during the night can pose some additional safety concerns, so extra regulations must be followed. Signs, Cones and other traffic control devices should have sufficient retroreflectorization to be seen at night, and all work vehicles must have 360-degree visibility lights. All work activities must be adequately illuminated, and the lights need to be positioned so as not to be directed into oncoming traffic. Work zone lights are not a substitute for any warning lights. Worksite access. When entering or leaving a work area, appropriate caution must be used. Anytime you enter or exit a job site, ensure that there is a sufficient gap in traffic to allow for the intended move. It is also important to understand that under no circumstance are you allowed to enter or cross an active roadway, and you can only enter or leave the work site in an appropriate work vehicle. All vehicles on site within a work zone must be facing the same direction as the flow of traffic. A state police escort is required for the movement of slow, heavy, or oversized vehicles and equipment into or out of a work area. State police. Work on authority roadways will often require the support of the state police. Installation or removal of any lane, roadway, ramp, or toll plaza closure needs to be performed with their assistance. All communications and requests for their assistance are to be directed via the engineer to the operations department. The state police will provide a construction unit patrol when required, such as when a slowdown is needed to install a lane closure. Their primary duty while on site is to assist you and maintain a safe flow of traffic through a work zone. Traffic slowdowns provide a safe distance to conduct work of a very short duration, typically 5 minutes, which requires working within the active travel lanes. Traffic slowdowns will not be permitted during holidays or heavy traffic days. Maintaining temporary traffic control zones. Lane, ramp, and partial ramp closures require a full-time patrol unless otherwise determined by the operations department. Patrol vehicles are considered work area vehicles and must follow all restrictions as such. When patrolling lane closures, the patrol must work from within the work zone and obey a speed limit of 35 miles per hour. If traffic cones are knocked down on the taper section of the turnpike, a slowdown must be requested in order to go out and set them back up again. The TCC and resident engineer will be responsible for maintaining the traffic control throughout the work zone. Special provisions. While working on the parkway, the use of U-turns is generally prohibited, although may be allowed depending on the contract. Use of grade-separated U-turns may also be allowed on the turnpike depending on the contract. At-grade U-turns are prohibited on the turnpike as well as all U-turns at toll plazas. Z-turn usage is never allowed under any circumstance. If you need to get back onto an active roadway, you need to safely exit the work zone, get off at the next interchange, and then properly re-enter the highway. Communications. When necessary, lane closings may need to be coordinated with other agencies. If work zones fall outside of authority jurisdiction, you must comply with regulations applicable to those areas. The Traffic Management and Technology Center is the focal point for all communications and disseminating of information to all parties, both internal and outside agencies. Named after John A. Cifelli, the former director of maintenance, this building is also where they monitor and report congestion incidents. Traffic impacts and incidents are everybody's responsibility. So if you see something, call the TMC and report it. Refer to the Construction Incident Communication Plan to obtain a list of emergency contacts and protocols on how to report such incidents. With the help of the Turnpike Operations, Maintenance, and Engineering Departments, the State Police, and you, we can all work together to build and maintain safe roadways. Remember that communication is important, and safety is always the #1 priority.